Killing. The intentional killing of people who are not actively participating in the conflict, such as civilians, prisoners of war, or soldiers who are wounded or have surrendered. This act is strictly forbidden under international law because it violates the principle of protecting those who are not, or are no longer, part of the fight. One example for this crime was the killing of civilians during the Nanking Massacre by Japanese troops. Torture. Torture involves deliberately causing severe physical or mental pain to individuals. It is often used to extract information, punish, intimidate, or coerce them. Examples include severe beatings, electric shocks, or psychological torment. International law prohibits torture in all circumstances. One example is the torture of prisoners at Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq. Experiments. Conducting biological experiments means performing medical or scientific tests on individuals without their consent and causing them harm. These experiments are often unnecessary and do not benefit the person subjected to them. This practice is banned under international law because it exploits and endangers vulnerable people. One example were the Nazi doctors conducting experiments on concentration camp prisoners during the Holocaust. Suffering. Causing great suffering refers to actions that inflict severe pain or serious injury on people. This can include physical violence, deprivation of basic needs like food and water, or other forms of mistreatment that lead to significant physical or mental harm. Such acts are prohibited as they cause undue suffering and violate human dignity. One example was the deliberate starvation of civilians during the siege of Leningrad. Destruction. Property destruction involves the widespread and unjustified destruction or seizure of property without any military necessity. This includes burning homes, looting, or destroying infrastructure like schools and hospitals. International law forbids such actions because they malform and disrupt communities unnecessarily. One example was the burning of Kuwaiti oil wells by retreating Iraqi forces during the Gulf War. Civilians. Attacking civilians means targeting people who are not involved in the fighting. This includes bombings, shootings, or other violent acts aimed at homes, markets, schools, or hospitals. For example, the bombing of civilian areas in Aleppo, Syria, during the Syrian civil war. Humanitarians. Attacking humanitarians involves targeting aid workers or peacekeepers who are there to provide assistance and support to those affected by the conflict. This includes ambushing aid convoys, attacking medical personnel, or harming those delivering food and supplies. One example was the ambush and killing of UN peacekeepers in South Sudan. Weapons. Using prohibited weapons refers to employing weapons that are banned under international law due to their indiscriminate nature or excessive harm. Examples include chemical weapons, biological weapons, and certain types of landmines. These weapons are banned because they cause unnecessary suffering and often affect civilians, for example, the use of chemical weapons in the Ghouta attack in Syria. Hostages. Hostage-taking involves capturing and holding individuals against their will to force others to act in a certain way, such as paying a ransom or meeting political demands. This act is illegal because it uses innocent lives as leverage and creates fear and instability. For example, the taking of hostages by Somali pirates. Pillaging. Pillaging is the act of looting or stealing property during conflicts. This can include taking valuable items, food, or resources from homes, businesses, or public buildings. It exploits and harms communities already suffering from the effects of war. For example, the looting of homes and businesses in Darfur, Sudan. Sexual violence includes acts like rape, sexual slavery, forced prostitution, and other forms of sexual abuse committed during conflicts. These acts are intended to terrorize, humiliate, and dominate victims. Sexual violence causes severe physical and emotional harm. One example for this crime was the mass rapes during the Rwandan genocide. Murder. In this context refers to the widespread and systematic killing of civilians. These killings are often part of a coordinated attack against a population, driven by political, racial, or other discriminatory motives. They target innocent people on a large scale, for example, the ethnic cleansing campaigns in Bosnia during the Yugoslav wars. Extermination. Extermination involves mass killing intended to destroy a part or whole of a population. This can include tactics like starvation, forced labor, or direct violence. Its goal is to eradicate groups of people, for example, the extermination of the Tutsi population during the Rwandan genocide. Enslavement. Enslavement is the practice of forcing individuals into labor or services against their will, treating them as property. This can include forced labor, human trafficking, and other forms of exploitation. It strips individuals of their freedom and dignity. For example, the use of forced labor camps in North Korea. Deportation. Deportation refers to the forced removal of individuals from their homes, often to distant or harsh environments. This act is part of broader attacks on specific populations. One example was the deportation of Crimean Tatars by the Soviet Union in 1944. As you can see, humans can be pretty disgusting, sick creatures.